for the NCAA Tournament that have some work to do here over these last 2 weeks and are worth watching in their results and are playing very meaningful games at this point of year. We're going to start with 3 teams that I think should be into the NCAA Tournament no matter what. Obviously, things can change, but these are bubble teams that should feel really good about where they stand right now. We're going to start out with the Virginia Tech Hokies. They were a bubble team who I think solidified their spot in the field with their win at Virginia a couple weeks ago. They're 20-8 on the season, ranked 45th in the RPI and 28th in KenPom, both of which are very, very good rankings. They're 5-6 against Quadrant 1. And now what does Quadrant 1 mean? The NCAA has decided they wanted to start breaking down games into 4 different quadrants to help the selection committee identify, just another aspect for them to identify which teams are better than others when deciding these at-large bid. A Quadrant 1 game is described as playing an opponent at home whose RPI is between 1 and 30, a neutral court game against an RPI team in the top 50, or an away game against a team in the RPI top 75. So the idea of this is to punish teams for losing at home more and give them more credit for winning on the road, because we all know winning on the road is one of the toughest things to do in college basketball. So in Quadrant 1 games, Virginia Tech is 5-6. Those 5 Quadrant 1 wins are very, very good and should be enough to get them into the NCAA Tournament. Same thing can be said for NC State. They also have 5 Quadrant 1 wins there, 5-7 against Quadrant 1. Their RPI is 55. KenPom rank is 50, so lower than Virginia Tech in both of those categories. But again, those 5 Quadrant 1 wins, the way they've been playing of late as well, they struggled early on in the season. They have some bad losses on the resume, including one to UNC Greensboro, which does not look great. But under first-year head coach Kevin Keatts, we've seen the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee in the past give teams credit for improving as the year has gone on. They've done that under Keatts. All of these Quadrant 1 wins outside of a neutral court win against Arizona in the beginning of the season has been in ACC play. So I think NC State fans, you should feel pretty good about your chances making the NCAA Tournament as well. And then our third and final team that should feel confident is UCLA out in the Pac-12. They're 47th in the RPI, 54th in KenPom. Not as many Quadrant 1 games for them. They're only 2-4 against Quadrant 1. Those 2 Quadrant 1 wins are why they're on the bubble in the first place, given those 2 Quadrant 1 wins came over Kentucky on a neutral court and then at Arizona. Those are very quality Quadrant 1 wins. One of the complaints about the quadrant system is it doesn't tell you how strong those Quadrant 1 wins are as opposed to another team that maybe has wins over teams that's barely scraped by into those quadrant requirements. But UCLA, those are 2 very, very quality wins. I think in a weak bubble year and them playing so well in the Pac-12 to 10-5 in conference play, I think that will get them into the NCAA Tournament without them really, barring a collapse, of course, without any real worry for them. These next 3 teams should definitely be worried. These are 3 teams that I would classify as really sweating it out here over these next 2 weeks. And we're going to start out with Texas. Texas is only 16-12 on the season. That's not a very good record. And in normal years, this would not be a team with the record considered for the bubble. However, they have 5 Quadrant 1 wins, as we talked about before. They're 5-9 in Quadrant 1 playing in the Big 12. You'll play a lot of Quadrant 1 games against good teams, but they're 54th in the RPI, 41 in KenPom. Those 5 Quadrant 1 wins certainly help them. Those are all metrics that you would think of an NCAA Tournament team. Strength of schedule, they play the 15th toughest schedule in the country. Again, very good. That comes from playing in the Big 12 as well, but there's 12 losses. That's going to be a major sticking point, I think, for the NCAA Selection Committee, as well as the fact that they're 6-9 in conference play. The selection committee doesn't like to reward teams who performed so poorly in conference play. I think Texas can hopefully, for them, get to 8 conference wins, finish 8-10 in the Big 12, and then maybe pick up another win or 2 in the Big 12 tournament. I think that's what they need to do to ensure their place in the NCAA tournament. We'll see what happens with their team that definitely still has some work to do. But right now, with those 5 Quadrant 1 wins, certainly have a case as long as they continue to pick up another win or 2 or 3 here down the stretch of the season. Another team that's really sweating it out, and we've seen them really sweat this out the past couple of years, Syracuse. They're 18-10 on the season, RPI rating of 42, KenPom rating of 51. The problem is with their Quadrant 1 record. They're 2-6 against Quadrant 1. Now, those wins were at Miami and at Louisville, both road games, which the committee will look favorably upon, but neither team is, going to be a top 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. This is, again, an example of Quadrant 1 wins not all being represented the same. Are they big wins? Yes. Syracuse, I think, needs to get one more marquee win to really put a stamp on their resume of being in the NCAA tournament. They play at Duke on Saturday, which would surely help their cause. And then next Saturday, the final weekend of the regular season, they host Clemson. Both of those games would give Syracuse the opportunity to pick up that marquee win and a major Quadrant 1 win. I think they need to pick up one of those and then win a game in the AAC tournament for them to feel comfortable about their tournament chances, but the opportunity is there. They're a team that I think is in solid position as long as they do those things that we mentioned before, beat Duke or Clemson and win one game in the AAC tournament. Oh, of course, you could beat both Duke and Clemson and you could be in and not have to worry about it, but the way Syracuse has played, I don't know if that's something we can necessarily expect from them. We're going to bring in a reaction poll here. Do you think Syracuse will make the NCAA tournament? We talked about before, the Orange have been a bubble team on several occasions over the past couple years. One year they got in as a 10 seed and made a run to the Final Four when people didn't think they were going to get in. Last year, many people thought they were going to get in and then get in. A questionable resume again this year, so give us your thoughts. Will Syracuse make the NCAA tournament? Let us know in your reactions below. Now, another team that is really sweating it out that we didn't think was going to be sweating it out before the season started was USC. USC was in the top 10, top 15 in the preseason for every major publication and every major ranking. They're sitting here with a 20-9 record, 37th in the RPI and 52nd in KenPom. Both of those would indicate an NCAA tournament team. However, again, their Quadrant 1 record is not great. They're 2-5 in their Quadrant 1 games, and those 2 wins were on a neutral court over Middle Tennessee and New Mexico State. Both of those came in the Diamond Head Classic in Hawaii over the Christmas break around Christmas time. Since then, they haven't had any Quadrant 1 wins. That's a major problem. They've had plenty of chances too in the Pac-12, but have fallen short in those games. They're the definition of a team that has, in terms of bubble team, beaten the teams that they're supposed to beat. They don't necessarily have any terrible losses on the resume, but they don't have any of those great wins either. So, much like Syracuse, USC needs to pick up 1 or 2 marquee wins down the stretch of the season in the Pac-12 tournament to feel comfortable about their chances, or else they could be a team that surprisingly gets snubbed on Selection Sunday. Now, these next 3 teams have some major work to do. Right now, I would say they would be left out of the tournament field, barring a major run in a conference tournament or an incredible stretch here to close the regular season. 2 of these teams don't have much time left in the regular season because they play in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten Conference Tournament starts next week. One of those teams is Penn State, who's 19-11 after sweeping Ohio State this season, won both in Columbus and at home. Many thought they had, including myself, thought they had a chance to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team despite their RPI being 85th. They're 27th in KenPom. Even though they had a 90-second strength of schedule, they had games this past week at Purdue and at home against Michigan. Win one of those games, you could pick up a 3rd Quadrant 1 win over a team not Ohio State, and their case suddenly looks a lot stronger. Well, they narrowly lost at Purdue, narrowly lost at home to Michigan. Suddenly, they're 2-6 against Quadrant 1. They don't have those real marquee wins outside of Ohio State. 11 losses is a lot. They're going to need to make a run in the Big Ten tournament and pick up another marquee win or 2 for them to get back on the right side of the bubble, and then maybe pick up 2 wins, 2 big wins, which again in the Big Ten tournament doesn't come up very often. You have Michigan State, Ohio State, Purdue, and Michigan. Unless you beat 2 of those teams in the Big Ten tournament, I don't see Penn State making the field of 68. Nebraska's a more interesting case. They're 21-9, have a better record. They're 12-5 in the Big Ten. That's usually a record in a major conference that will get you into the NCAA tournament. But they're only 60th in the RPI, 57th in KenPom. Why? Well, they had the 124th best schedule. Their schedule was not great. Their strength schedule was not great, and they haven't really beaten anybody. They're only 1-6 against Quadrant 1 teams. The Cornhuskers are a team that doesn't have any bad losses, but only have 1 win that really resonates with the NCAA tournament committee. That's not good. And so again, while Penn State may need to beat one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten, as we mentioned, the Big Ten tournament, Nebraska probably needs to beat 2 to get on the right side of the bubble, and then potentially 3 to ensure their bid, which of course if they won 3, that would likely mean they won the Big Ten tournament and would be in anyway. That may be the best course of action for Nebraska, because unless they they go on a run here and somehow beat 2 and lose in the Big Ten championship game, I don't necessarily see them getting into the field. I just don't think the resume, despite the lofty win total in Big Ten play and on the record, I don't think it's strong enough for them to make the field of 6 to 8 teams. And our third and final team here that's probably left out of the NCAA tournament is Georgia. They had a case that was building the past week. They had picked up some big wins, including a home win against Tennessee. Wednesday night, lost to South Carolina. I think that essentially ends Georgia's NCAA tournament hopes. They're 15-12 overall. They're 67th in the RPI, 71st in KenPom. The reason why they were on the bubble in the first place, despite this iffy record, was the fact that they were 6-7 in Quadrant 1 games. Those 6 Quadrant 1 wins really, again, resonate with the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. The big problem with the resume, though, despite those 6 Quadrant 1 wins, is that they have 3 really, really bad losses on that resume. They lost to San Diego State, who was 104th in the RPI. They lost to Vanderbilt, who was 107th. And then lost to UMass, who's 228th in the RPI. 228th. You simply cannot have a loss like that and put up as if you have a resume as Georgia has and expect to make the NCAA tournament. Because of that, Georgia fans, you're going to have to win the SEC tournament if you're going to make the NCAA tournament. I don't see how you get in as an at-large unless that happens. All right, guys, that will do it for this week's Rauf Report. I am Brian Rauf. Remember to follow me on Twitter at BRauf33 for all your latest news and analysis from around the college basketball world.